Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug.Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and today I'm talking to Monica Lent again. She's the founder of Affilimate, and she actually got into all this stuff, Affilimate, and creating it via her travel blog, if I have the story right. And then this blog is making over 10K per month, and we're going to dig into all the details. Another cool thing is she doesn't publish very often, and she only has 120 articles, yet she's earning, pretty significant amount of money. So, Monica, welcome. How's it going today?
Going pretty good. Thanks for having me, Doug. I'm excited to be back on with you.
Very good. And you were on the show before, so we'll link up so people can check out the initial sort of inaugural visit that you were on. But today we're talking about this travel blog. So I'm curious just how you ended up starting the blog in general and the origin story.
Definitely. So, I am an American living in Germany, and when I moved over here, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago or so, I started this blog kind of thinking that it would be a chronicle of my life living in Europe. I started with kind of like diary style entries of like, here's what I did today. Like, I took a walk here. And over time, I kind of evolved the content of the website from being, just about me and a personal kind of like, yeah, my personal story to being slightly more useful for other people. So I started to kind of publish things about trips that I took, useful travel tips, and things like that. And over time, I would take years off, come back to it, and I started to notice that the site was like actually getting some meaningful traffic. So it had something like 30,000 monthly visitors. And at the time, I had no idea, like, is this a lot? Like, is it not? How are people finding this? So I kind of accidentally SEO'd the website to some degree. And then like a lot of people, I listened to Pat Flynn and I learned about affiliate marketing a bit, started to put some affiliate links on the website. And one year when doing my taxes, I saw like, hey, I made 2K this year from like, referring hotels that I'd stayed at. And I realized, okay, if I did this a little bit more intentionally, maybe I could make something out of this. And yeah, that's kind of like the origin story. And from there, I had kind of 1 year right before the pandemic where I published, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 articles, which is a pretty substantial block of the monetized content that exists today. And yeah, since finally we are getting back from the pandemic and that content has had time to rank, that's kind of where the revenue is coming from.
That's awesome. And if I heard right, you started the blogs in something like 2013 or so?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly when I started it. I think when I look at the earliest posts, I think it was more like 6 years ago. I moved to Germany 9 years ago, so it was somewhere in there. But it's, let's say it's not a recent project.
Yeah.
It had its origins, yeah, at least 5 years ago, if not longer.
And then did you have a writing background or anything like that? Or was it sort of a struggle and you were just, like you said, you were just blogging like, hey, I went to these stores and took some pictures or something like that, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I've always liked writing. I was like best grade in English class, I guess. So that's something that was never really particularly difficult to me. But definitely, I would say a big part of it is that I picked up photography in the meantime. So pretty much all of the content on the blog, it is based on personal experience. I've never hired writers to work on it. Like 99.9% of the images on the website are mine. So, yeah, definitely the fact that I could supply my own images. I have a secret hypothesis that Google likes them, but I have no data to back that up. So we'll see.
Gotcha. And then you were listening to Smart Passive Income and you started to connect some dots. And I'm also curious about like the length of the content. So I'm jumping around a little bit, but you were
Mhm.
blogging a little bit, you were gathering some information, some tactical ideas, and starting to integrate it. So kind of I'm making a statement, and I'm going to have you comment on it. So any thoughts about how all that came together as you started to change the content so that you could earn some money?
I mean, honestly, I never really thought about word count or the length of the content until, let's say, more recently, but I still don't think about it very much because it's just me kind of trying to fill in the gaps of like information that I wish I had when I was planning my trips. So a lot of the content, it's not like it's just 2,000 words and like, okay, made it to 2,000 words and Google's going to be happy with that. There's a lot of stuff that is like between 3 and 10,000 words just because you go somewhere, let's say for 2 weeks, and you want to provide like all the information in one place, then like that's how much it takes to really make that comprehensive. And I think that's the story of one of my like earliest posts that like started to rank and generate some money, which doesn't today. And that was an article about spending 2 weeks in Japan. I think it used to be my top traffic article. It's definitely not anymore. But that one, kind of just recommending like where I stayed and really having something super comprehensive. At the time, fewer people were also writing that kind of stuff. So I think it might still be page one, but no one goes there, at least
Okay,
not now. Yeah.
got it. So going back, and it's okay if you don't remember this exactly, but I'm curious about the traffic trajectory. And you could take us all the way through the present day. And I'm sure maybe the first couple years, like you said, you were in and you were out of blogging for a bit. So yeah, how did it go in the first few years, and then where are we at now, especially considering the pandemic and what that did to travel websites?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, early on, honestly, I don't remember the traffic very much. I'm sure I could pull it up in Google Analytics. I do remember looking at that 30K a month and just being like, I genuinely don't know if this is a lot or not. Where does this fit in the world of website traffic? And then, from there, it was really just a matter of taking it a little bit more intentionally and fixing some of the on-page SEO that I clearly didn't know what I was doing. So my favorite example of this is I have an article about things to do in Berlin. It's ranking on page one right now. I live here, so it has 50 tips of things that I have pretty much done all of them. And when I first wrote this article, for each of the 50 things, I used bold text instead of like H2s, which I think is what it
Right.
is today. I'm not sure. And once I made that change, it was like it immediately shot from like, deep in the depths of Google to like, being page one or two. And this was like a big wake up call for me. Like, okay, I clearly did not understand basic formatting. If I go back and kind of improve the existing content, like probably more people will start to see it. So, and then there was definitely various points where I think you can tell like Google starts to love your website and like, you just see the traffic growing, growing, growing. And then there is a plateau at some point and you're like, okay, what's going on? Like, did I reach some kind of a maximum for my site and the current content or whatever? And then it kind of goes up again. So I think I noticed definitely several of these waves where, the traffic was just increasing quite a bit. But unfortunately, because of the fact that this really started to pick up, especially when I was publishing more in 2019, I never got to see the summer traffic potential because travel is so seasonal. All of the content that I publish, I pretty much only expected to get visitors like 1 year later. Let's say I go to Italy in July, I write the content, but I don't expect anyone to actually visit it until the travel season next year. So in that case, I just didn't know what was possible. I had in my mind, after seeing kind of the revenue and the traffic, that it could be a 10K per month possibility that the site could reach that in the later summer months, except for the pandemic. And the pandemic cut out 90 to 95% of the traffic in a matter of like 3 weeks.
Wow.
So it was pretty devastating. And that year I survived. I actually had to like use my savings, but the only thing that converted was like a little bit of Amazon, but basically everything else was like absolutely nothing. But yeah, thankfully this year now it's about 100K month sessions in the last 28 days, according to Google. Google Analytics. So of course, some of it is not there, but that's what it looks like. And yeah, I'm excited to see like where does it go this summer once we're really in full swing. I would say the months of like August and September kind of tend to be the high points, at least for a site like mine, focused on like Northern Hemisphere Americans traveling to Europe, etc.
Okay. And one thing you said that was really interesting is you publish a piece of content, which it sounds like you go on a trip. So you experience everything, you're able to take pictures, you have more information, maybe some reflection afterwards. So you write the article and you don't even expect to get any traffic for another year. Have you always been sort of that forward looking and able to like do stuff now for a payoff like way in the future? And you don't even know if it's going to work, right? So is that sort of your personality generally?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, at least what I like, if I was running the site more actively and publishing more actively, then I would be trying to publish content at least, 1 quarter in advance. But realistically, let's say that you go somewhere in the height of the summer and then you only, actually write about it a month later, takes some time to rank. And by that point, people are maybe already traveling and they're not planning anymore. So inevitably you miss that season. So I don't know if I've always been that way. The fact that I wrote so much stuff without ever expecting to have anyone like read it or make any money, I guess that just means that like the motivations at the beginning were different. And of course, these days it's great to make money. It's great to like reread the stuff that I wrote and kind of like remember everything because my memory is actually quite bad. So that helps. But yeah, definitely there is a very delayed gratification in the space of travel, I think, especially when you're talking about seasonal destinations, which a lot of Europe is. People don't like to come here during the winter because it's depressing.
Okay, got it. So let's move on to the revenue. And I think you'll people will be surprised about the revenue split. So what is the revenue split as much as you could break it down or feel comfortable sharing with us?
Yeah, so I mean, I would have to pull up the ad revenue. I don't know exactly what it is right now because I haven't checked it that recently, but it is over 3K a month is ad revenue. And then the affiliate side of things generated in the last 30 days is over 10K. And the important thing for anyone who's thinking about starting a travel site now is that certain types of travel affiliates do have higher cancellation rates. So it's not like returning a physical product from Amazon. People cancel travel plans or reschedule them, not with your cookie all the time. So depending on the exact program, this can be anywhere from 10 to 30 or even 40%. So there are different types. Some are higher, some are lower in terms of cancellation rate. So that's key to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, so at least in terms of what I refer to it as generated revenue in the last 30 days is roughly 13K. And then, of course, I expect some of that to go away when it comes to like cancellations and stuff. But hopefully, still over 10K net getting paid out over the course of the rest of the summer once people travel.
And I was about to ask, what's sort of your estimate or historically how much is canceled? So it sounds like maybe about 20-30% or so.
It depends. So, in my experience, when it comes to things like hotels, so like for example, like I went on a safari, and now am able to like write about, oh, this is the place I stayed. If you're going to South Africa, here's like a recommended spot. And so when I refer accommodation, the cancellation rate is much higher because I think a lot of these providers, they even encourage people to cancel or find something cheaper. They also have like the up to 24 hours in advance, you can cancel with no fees, so there's a lot of incentive almost for people to cancel and rebook. So I think hotels are quite high. It's less so with things like experiences that people kind of book last minute. So like
Sure.
For example, I went to Lisbon and I did a food tour. People don't tend to cancel that kind of stuff as much because they only book it 1 week in advance. Whereas like with something like accommodation, people will book this, you see like 6, 12 months in advance and you're like, think to yourself, I'm never going to see this money because that person's life is going to change, before they end up going here. So it depends for every single kind of different type of activity. But yeah, I would say I hope to stay over 10K. So maybe like 25% is like a safe bet averaged amongst the different programs.
Got it. And just to highlight, so about 25 to 30% of the revenue is from ad revenue, and then affiliate makes up the rest. Can you tell us about how many different affiliate programs you're a part of, roughly?
Okay, I'm like visualizing my little dashboard. I think maybe it's like 10. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But there's definitely, some concentration. So like in terms of travel affiliate, there's like loads of different things that you can make money with. And I certainly only tap into a very small number of those. But the main things that I focus on are either accommodation or experiences, because those are both things I can do them myself. I try to kind of focus on things that I've done or experienced myself. I think it helps also with conversion when you have like pictures that you took, like that show, oh, there's a person here or whatever. It also lends credibility. So those are kind of the two main things for me. And I would say those are like a pretty substantial part. There is Amazon, by the way, like I think 1K a month from Amazon, something, because I do talk about like photography equipment that I use, but that's like not a big focus. It's just kind of like a nice to have, but I don't write any more Amazon content these days, if
Got it.
possible. Yeah.
And for actually, just side note, food tours are great to see a city. I've done a few like walking food tours. So what kind of food tours do you do? Are they like bigger in scope, or which ones do you check out?
Yeah, well, actually, the one that I just did in Lisbon was the first time I've ever been on a food tour. So I was kind of planning, okay, if I'm going to go here and I want to like, because I have a freelance business as a travel writer. So if I want to be able to like expense some of the trip, then I need to also produce content on it so that it, fits into the business. So I was like, okay, we do a food tour. And include that. But I hadn't done one before that. It just looked like one of the options when I was thinking, okay, what could I have as an experience and then later be able to promote on the blog if I like it? So in this case, it was like 3-hour food tour, like with a local of the city, and you try, basically the things that people who live there eat that are kind of unique. So it was nice. It wasn't too much walking actually. Like,
Okay.
Lisbon is very hilly, so like you need some strategy to like
Yeah.
not end up totally exhausted walking up all of the hills.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, and we did one in Seattle. I guess it was all the Pacific Northwest, different trips though, but we did one in Seattle and one in Portland. And just like you're saying, you go to the neighborhood spots, you get to try a little food at multiple different places
Mm-hmm.
and different foods. Of course, if you just went there to eat, you would have to order like the
Yeah,
whole
totally.
entree and you just want like one ravioli or something like that.
Yeah,
So you get
yeah.
to try like 10 things that night, walk a couple miles, and it's fun.
Yeah,
So
it's super fun. And also like tours are just in general, like for anyone listening, the kind of standard rate for tours is 8%. So it's a lot better than anything you'll get on Amazon, like from an affiliate commission perspective. So if you're willing to invest the money, I like to think about it like break even. So, okay, if I can have this experience, maybe I have to spend $300 if there's three of us going. But okay, there's a reasonable path that maybe in a year or two, actually, this one experience could break even from the affiliate commissions that I get for it. So
nice.
it's almost like traveling for free on a
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
year time horizon.
That's that's a great way to look at it. And yeah, so people check out food tours. don't let the price scare you off. It's like an activity. You get a little history lesson. Usually they tell you about the neighborhoods and all that stuff. And just a side note, thinking of other tours, we have done 2 or 3 Segway tours. Have you done those? Have you been
Really?
on a Segway?
No, but as a cyclist, when I see people on segways, I shake my fist at them. So
Okay, that's
I don't
fair.
know,
Yeah,
but I'm sure it's fun. I think it sounds a little bit scary, though. I don't
yeah.
know.
It They had us do like a little like a training run in the parking lot to make sure we were
Uh-huh.
able to like get around. But yeah, little, small, I don't know if they were little kids, but smaller people and, elderly folks were like in the tour. So like everyone kind of got the hang of it and there were no
Hmm.
incidences, but those are really fun, even just to check it out. And I think the best one that we did, it was in Washington D.C. Like what do they call it? The mall area? Is that what they call it in
I
D.C.?
guess
Like all the
I haven't
stuff,
been
all the
there in a
monuments and
long
whatever.
time. Yeah, yeah.
But it's many miles, so
Mm-hmm.
it would take a really long time to walk it. But
Mm-hmm.
on a Segway, it's a little faster. But I appreciate as a cyclist, you don't want to see Segways in the bike lane or whatever, right?
People are just not very well trained, so their behavior is kind of erratic. It's very similar to these scooters. I don't know if you have these much in the US, I suppose.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I hate them.
Yeah.
But, anyways,
Okay. And as
yeah.
normal, I go off on some weird tangent that's unrelated to what we're talking about, but we can't we can't reel it back in. So we're talking revenue. You have several different affiliate programs, which is great. It is more concentrated, like you said, for certain ones seem to pay out more. One thing you mentioned is there are some other affiliate programs that maybe you're not into to test out. I'm just curious, like if you were to list out maybe a couple others, what are some other ways travel bloggers or influencers are able to monetize via affiliate that you're not doing specifically?
Yeah, so when it comes to this, I actually don't share this
Okay,
because I have customers who are in these niches doing well with things that I'm not doing, so that's why
got it.
I only talk about the programs I'm in my own experience. Otherwise it would be kind of unfair to kind of like, share that
Sure.
kind of knowledge based on stuff that's not my own site. So that's why I just focus on photography gear, accommodation, and tours. Those are like the three, let's say, main pillars of the affiliate revenue of my site.
Got it. And just for context for people, which we'll talk about Affilimate a little bit, but Monica, you have basically inside information because you meet with clients, so you know good affiliate programs. But and it's okay if you don't want to answer this, but if one was interested, a person probably could just go look at affiliate programs in um, travel marketplaces or just do some research, and a person could probably find some different options, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never really used these metrics personally. But like what we do have is on our website, we produce affiliate program lists based on kind of reverse engineering the top sites in a given niche. So let's say top 20, top 50, and we have like a tool that basically goes in and just finds out what programs they're linking to, and then we will rank them based on the most linked programs. So this is like how you can kind of do it with publicly available data. You can approximate something if we don't have a niche covered that you're interested in. You can also like, go to Ahrefs, export some, the link domains. And if you're in the biz long enough, you will certainly learn to like notice kind of like what websites, what affiliate tracking domains they may be linking to. And that's like a good way to kind of like reverse engineer. But of course, you'll never know with 100% certainty. But yeah, that's what I would suggest to people. If you know that a site is profitable for whatever reason, then you can do
Perfect.
it like that as well.
All right. Thanks. And didn't mean to pressure you to share anything, so I hope we danced
No,
around that well
it's totally
enough.
it's
Okay.
totally fine. Yeah, I just want to like
Got it.
anything that I know that I wouldn't otherwise know, I don't share. That's the
That
mantra,
totally
let's
makes
say.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's shift over to the content area a little bit. It sounds like initially you weren't really doing much keyword research or thinking about it. And reading between the lines, it sounds like you're typically writing content where you go through an experience because you went on a trip and you've done several things. So even that isn't necessarily like strongly keyword driven, it's driven by your experiences. So how did you approach keywords? When did you start looking at them? How much do you think about it when you're going on a trip? And all those details about just generating the topic ideas.
Yeah, I think people who are really professional at travel blogging, which I don't know if I would say I'm like that professional because I don't do it full time, but a lot of people do plan the content they're going to write in advance and then maybe supplement that with stuff that they realize needs to get filled in as they're there. So for example, let's say I went to Lisbon recently. If I was going to do an article on things to do in Lisbon, then I would go research and be like, okay, what are the must-have things that my list definitely needs to include because they're top experiences? Make sure that I go there as well to capture, the photos that I can include. So there is definitely a degree of like research that, let's say maybe I'm thinking, okay, I want to publish at least one piece of content per trip that I take so it fits into the business. Then that's kind of how I'll do it. And I think it varies so much by the destination. So for example, let's say I was going to Paris. I would not try to write things to do in Paris because it's so competitive. My site doesn't have very much content about France, so like there are a lot of things that kind of play into that. But maybe I would do like, I don't know, top Paris museums, and maybe you can buy skip the line tickets. I have no idea. That's just a hypothesis. So I might take a different angle, look for something that is a little bit more competition, lower competition, and see if I can like weave that into the trip a little bit. But at some point, and when I'm there, I do try to like take photos of like things where I'm like, maybe I'm going to need this. So like, make sure it gets captured. But yeah, there is like keyword research involved, but I think at some point you just kind of know, okay, this is a major city. If I try to write about this type of topic, it will never rank. At least not without a ton of supporting content or whatever. So I'm not sure if this answers your question. It's a little bit, touchy feely maybe for me, because every destination is different. How expensive it is to travel to every destination is different. The type of traveler to every destination is different. Some people, if they go to Paris Disneyland, maybe they're families. If they go to, Paris best district for nightlife, then they're, cheap people who want to stay in hostels. I have no idea. But, you have to go a bit deeper to understand who is the type of reader for each of these pieces to find out how can it be efficiently monetized, and also how can I actually rank for it because it's not too competitive. And then I try to kind of like weave that into the trip if possible.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, that does make sense. You're aiming for long tail keywords so that you can actually rank for it. And also, like you said, you're trying to do things that you're gonna do anyway. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think the thing is when you have a lot of patience, you can write something, and like I've had content that I wrote and it didn't rank for like 2 years, but then it does. And like, you're like, okay, Google finally decided that even though this is the only article I have on this destination, that it's really good. And now it ranks me. And as long as I'm not like all upset about the fact that it didn't rank after a couple months, then I just treat it like any of that content has the potential to eventually rank if it's good enough. And learning what's good enough, I think, is what takes everybody a lot of time, I think, in probably any niche.
Okay. And I guess the second part of the approach, like you mentioned, it's a little touchy feely. So you've kind of just internalized what keywords could work, the monetization, and it sounds like as you're like walking through a city or a destination, you're thinking like how all those pieces come together, and you don't know exactly, but you're laying the groundwork, taking pictures and thinking, and then you can pull it together once you get home. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, which we talked about in the previous discussion that we had together, was that because I'm tracking how much revenue each piece of content makes, and also metrics like revenue per visitor and earnings per click, there is a sense that I can develop of what different types of content has in terms of earning potential. For example, things to do in a city, like things to do in Berlin, it has a lot of like search volume, but a lot of people also Google for that kind of stuff before they're even physically in a city, or when they're deciding, do I even want to go here? So the intent is very split between, the aspirational visitors and the people who are like, I'm here and I didn't plan anything in advance, and now I need to find out what to do today. So like the metrics are also, they have different characteristics than the type of content that people will like really, look for during the travel planning process. So by being aware of all of those metrics, it becomes more intuitive what potential, all of these variables come together in terms of a piece of content that can be monetized, especially from an affiliate standpoint.
Got it. And then are there other sort of types of content or templates or ways that you look at content? So one of them, like you said, is things to do. What are some others?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like my main other thing is like accommodation. So like, especially if like I stay somewhere special, like for example, going on safari, if I am looking for or want to research, like staying in a safari lodge, by the way, if you've never done it, it costs like $300 per person per night. It's very expensive. Um, so, well, when I see something that's expensive, I think, good commission. So I can kind of like invest in that a little bit and be like, okay, hopefully, if I just sell enough of these over the next couple of years, then I will break even. So things like that. I think specialty accommodation is like a great example. So safari lodges in Kruger. I haven't written this article, but I imagine that somebody is out there making money with a keyword like that. So that's like one example. I mean, I guess the big thing I would suggest to people is like next time you're planning a trip, if you wanted to do something like this, then what are the parts of the research process that you do when you're actually buying stuff? So what are the best areas to stay in, or the best neighborhoods, the best tours and activities, things to do? I'm sure there's a lot more, but like those are some of the ones that are like pretty big in terms of like having some kind of search volume behind them.
Okay. And then do you check search volumes as you're, I guess, trying to title your pieces?
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, like fun fact, I did all of like the keyword research for this site using Key Search, which is like a super budget keyword tool. It costs like $17 a month, and I think there's even like a discount code so you can get it even cheaper. It's like so cheap. And that's all I mean, these days now I have an Ahrefs subscription that will like, bleed me dry one
Yeah.
day when I get opted into their new pricing model. But, I use like this super cheap tool to do basically all of the keyword research for all of the content that like, is actually making money today. So don't need an expensive keyword tool. At least like, that was my experience. So I do keyword research, and I use keywords everywhere. Actually, I probably use this more than anything else because it's
Mhm.
just so like low friction to type into the search box and just kind of like get a feel of search volumes.
Perfect. Sticking with the content area, you don't publish too often, so you can talk about why you don't publish too often. And you said you have 120 articles and you're not publishing much, yet you're still earning quite a bit. So where do you spend your time on content?
Yeah. So I only update this site like roughly quarterly, because in travel, freshness is really important. So if you're like less updated dates, go too long without updating, one, people go to the page and they think, this hasn't been updated lately. It's probably all wrong,
Mhm.
which may or may not be true. So these days, if I'm going to be doing pretty much anything, is I do update the descriptions for travel restrictions per country. So I have kind of like some reusable code for, the different articles, and I can update in one place saying, okay, here's the latest news on travel to Japan. It's not available yet, but they are, doing XYZ and we expect it to be available at this time. So lately I've been doing that about once a quarter to kind of like keep it up to date. So people, have the feeling that when they visit the post, it has some recent information. And if something is wrong, then I do try to update that. But yeah, I don't spend time on the site because it's not my main business, and it would take a long time. And yeah, I'm not particularly trying to grow it either. So actually, what I use it the most for, besides generating some passive income, is as a testing ground. So all of like the beta code for Affilimate gets deployed there first. So if there were to be any kind of issue or something like that, it would be detected in advance. And it's really important to have like something with a meaningful amount of traffic and revenue, so that you can continuously monitor that before anything goes live on like customer sites. So that's kind of like the motivation for maintaining it, even if it's not like my main focus. But
Sure.
yeah, quarterly updates. That's
Okay.
what I'm like aiming for, if I can like not forget about it.
And then for those quarterly updates, is it like 25% of the content on the site quarterly, or are you saying like each quarter, like every piece of content gets a
Oh,
refresh? Just curious, like I know you won't know exactly, but how
uh-huh.
much do you go back to everything?
Oh, that's a good point. I think it's more like updating the main like pieces of content. I want as much as possible that the last updated date on the article is from the current year.
Mhm.
So I might not make it to everything. So over
Yeah,
time, I would try to kind of go back, but I would also prioritize this based on where people are traveling now, because the article's already out there and it's already ranking. So I don't know, let's say if people go somewhere like South Africa, for example, if people tend to go there more in Northern Hemisphere winter, then I would take care of that in January or, later in the year, just to like make sure, okay, it's updated before most people will be visiting this destination if possible. But to be honest, I'm not that organized. Like,
yeah.
I try, but it's really just more like egregious things that are egregious or now inaccurate, or I receive emails from someone saying this is now not available. Then I will like try to like make it accurate. But I don't
Okay,
have that much time.
got it. Yeah, well, how much time would you say you spend on the site? Just whatever interval of time you want to describe.
I would say like maybe I'll do like one Saturday working on it per quarter. Sometimes the updates it's not always quarterly. I don't have like something in
Mhm.
the calendar that says now it's time to update this. But you know, especially when I'm looking at the metrics, looking at how much something is earning. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to go in and apply some of the things that I've learned. So, for example, right now, I would like to get rid of like wasted Amazon recommendations. So, one thing that some people do is write packing lists, right? And I tried this. Okay, you need like a woolly cap if you're going to go to Iceland in winter, for example. Great. Now I can get 20 cents from Amazon if you buy this. Fabulous. So I'm kind of trying where I have these like packing list sections in some of my posts. Like if I happen to be updating that content, then I will probably just delete that because it's not worth it to me. And then, go in and share if I took an experience and it's possible to book it online, then I would like prefer to include something like that as opposed to things like clothing and other like physical goods. So sometimes I do a little bit of that updating, but realistically, I can't spend more than like one day every couple of months working on it. So
Okay, got it.
yeah.
All right. So shifting over to the link building and sort of promotion area, have you done any link building sort of intentionally for the site, or does it have many links going to it?
Not that many. I think the domain rating on Ahrefs is like 30 or 31, so it's like it's not that high at all. Um, I am like part of some link building Facebook groups. So bloggers do like, link swaps, three-way link swaps and things like that. And I've done some of that. But for the most part, I'm just way too lazy. And it's like, it's so much work, to like communicate with them. And then like eventually what happens a lot is that in travel, when you're working with someone who has like a general travel site, like mine is general, eventually they will write the same piece of content as you and either remove your link, or if they're really friendly, they might like write you a little message, be like, hey, I'm removing your link. Just want to let you know. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I have like content that ranks without links, or like it just has those spammy links from people who copy the website. And
Right.
I really focus more on like really amazing images. So like people just scroll forever because they see all the images. They're like, oh my God, I want to go there. And then the content is long
Got it.
because it's comprehensive. And I think my unproven SEO theory is that is more important. I wish I had more links, but then I also don't care.
Right.
So I just can't be bothered to negotiate for them.
Yeah. No, that's great because I mean you're focusing on the part that you like, the photography, the actual content. And how many images would you say, like on average, um, for some of your well, they're all travel pieces, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
how much
It's
or
a
how
lot.
many images? Yeah.
It's a lot. So actually, the way that I do the articles, and this, because I don't use WordPress, I think maybe we mentioned that last time. I use a static site generator called Hugo, so it's easier. I can automate some of this.
Hmm.
So basically, what I do is I go into Lightroom and like choose all my images. Maybe it's like 30 or 40 images, and I'll just export all of those, and then basically copy the paths and kind of automate putting them into the article, and actually more like visually design the article first. Like what is going to be like the hook image where someone asks themselves, I want to know where that is. So they are like intrigued to like kind of dig deeper and like find out where that's going to be located. So that's kind of like how I think about it, is I visually design the whole piece, including the images and the headlines and the structure first, and then go in and kind of like fill it in later.
Okay. I don't remember that you don't use WordPress. You use Hugo. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Okay. And for a minute, one thing, if people haven't listened to the other interview, Monica, you're a huge nerd. You have a CS degree, is that right?
I minored in computer science
Okay.
because I failed calculus. So
Okay.
I did not make it, but I got my degree in Latin instead.
Latin and then a minor in CS. Okay,
Exactly.
that's great. Because I for a little while when I was trying to speed up my WordPress site, I looked into some static
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what you call it, content yeah, CMSs, right? Some
Uh-huh.
anyway, so I
It's just a
looked a
static
little bit.
site generator. Yeah,
Okay.
there's no CMS, it's files.
Oh, it's just files, and I was like, this makes sense to me. But
Mm-hmm.
then I never like dove in because I felt like it was just a rabbit hole that was like solving the problem too well. And then like I was like, I don't know. So did you ever use WordPress or you just jumped into
Yeah,
Hugo?
no, I have actually for my personal site, like myname.com, I had WordPress and I found it so infuriating that I replaced it with the static site. But
Yeah.
these days I do actually have like a little WordPress website. It's like a niche photography site. I don't know how many visitors it gets, like a few thousand visitors a month. It has like 6 or 8 articles. I'm not sure. But the reason it exists is because I had to teach myself WordPress, because all of our customers use WordPress and they use like WordPress specific terminology that I'm like, I don't know what this is, or like, this
Okay.
is not technical term. So I have like a little one, but it's like, it's for experimentation and breaking. So if something goes wrong, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But I don't run any like big WordPress sites now.
All right. And
No.
then that's funny. So what just one or two infuriating things about WordPress that you
Oh, I
remember?
tried to change my URL. Uh, yeah, I tried to change my URL, and it was like all of these URLs are like hard coded in the database, and I was like, I don't want to like I know how databases work. But writing a migration to like go in or like using sketchy plugins, like I think WordPress plugins are sketchy and security, like from a security standpoint, all these WordPress plugins constantly have security issues. And if you know anything like technical, from what I understand, a lot of like WordPress plugins are like a Wild West. They can just access all kinds of things with like, I mean, someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but like, there's not like proper sandboxing of like data and like permissions and things like that, which is, and they maybe can't even do that because they have so many legacy systems relying on the current behavior, which is I can do anything with any data whenever I want. And this is obviously complete chaos. So I remember like fighting with the SEO at my like previous company when he was like, why can't we have WordPress? And I was like, we're a billion-dollar fintech company. We cannot have our website getting hacked because you decided to install, the latest cool social sharing widget. And this happened to have like malware inside.
Yeah.
Which is so ridiculous. So anyways, I have a WordPress, but I don't use it for anything serious. No.
Yeah.
I think if you're not technical, it's probably the best solution, but I am. So I also have a different website. Actually, the Affilimate website does use a headless CMS called Sanity. And this allows me to store the content all in a data format. So you can generate content a lot easier and reuse things kind of like blocks. I won't go into it too deep, but this is also like a great option that's not static sites, but it does allow me to like outsource things. And on a website like what I have now, I can't outsource anything because they would need to go into the code, which is not feasible for average anybody.
Yeah, that is whenever I start thinking about WordPress and all the things you described, those are not even the gripes that I have. But
okay. I'm not a real WordPress user, that's why.
Yeah. It all makes sense. And I'm like, if I started a new blog, I would probably do something, static files, keep it simple, be really geeky and feel good about it, and not have to worry about like a new new version of like Yoast just like trashing something like it did a couple years ago. I think it was like 2017. There was some issue, but you didn't even care about it. So, okay.
I mean, I create my own problems. That's the alternative. So anywhere there's code involved, there are problems.
Yeah.
It's just that when you're dealing with your own code, that's sometimes better than trying to troubleshoot other people's code, which is the case.
Very good. Okay. So we'll bring it back on track. As we're winding down, any mistakes that you made? And early on, you mentioned like, you started writing, you really didn't know any SEO. So that was kind of a minor mistake before you knew that you were doing anything interesting, I guess. And I'm sure you made some others along the way. So any big ones or even minor ones?
I'm trying to think about mistakes. I mean, the main thing is I just didn't start the site with the goal of monetizing it. So like, of course, if I was going to start a website today and that was my goal, I would do things differently. And of course, it would also be a lot faster to make money from it. Again, if that was my goal. But I also don't think it's bad to like start a project like not with the goal of making money from it per se. It just means that most of the stuff you create up until that point is difficult to monetize retroactively, unless you're going to rewrite everything, which can be it can be hard to motivate yourself to do that. So I don't know. I think, if somebody is kind of like getting started today and they don't want to like make mistakes, I think it's totally fine if you don't know what you're doing at the beginning. Most people don't. And eventually, you end up with a site that is profitable. It just takes longer than you thought. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't have any like huge mistakes. Maybe I would feel that way. The one big mistake, but I can share mistakes other people make.
Okay, that's good.
but for my own, I luckily didn't make those.
No
So,
major. Well,
yeah.
I think that's great because, one of the pieces that gets people is they don't want to work on something if they don't know it's going to work. And it turns out
Mm,
we don't know if, like, even if you
nobody
started
knows.
a new site and you know what you're doing now, like, you don't know if it's going to work. You don't know if you can recreate what you did before that was successful. You don't know if that's going to work in the future. Sure, you have a better chance because you've seen it work, but I think you were working on the site not thinking that you were going to get anything out of it. You were doing it for fun. You had it was its own motivation to work on it with no like ROI.
Mhm.
So I think it really, I mean, it highlights the fact that you had bigger opportunities in the future. So you're making like, over 10K per month from the site currently, which is amazing because it was just a little fun side project, but also it impacted your life in a bigger way, which is one of our final questions here. And it led you to create, Affilimate. So can you tell us a little bit about that and, why you embarked on creating software?
Yeah, sure. So, as we established, or as you, Doug, have established, I'm a big nerd. Um, and while I was finding, ways to kind of over engineer my website, um, and, making more affiliate revenue, uh, I basically got to the point where I kind of wanted to understand which pieces of content were generating revenue. And for anybody who is not like familiar with this, when you create affiliate links, the vast majority of platforms out there, they'll allow you to add this extra kind of like tracking parameter, and you can store whatever you want in there. Most commonly, people might put the name of the product, or they might put the name of the article um, that the link appears in, because a lot of platforms just don't give you very much information about where the conversion came from. And maybe they can't because of certain settings that you have on your site. And so it was one of those cases where it's like, well, if I'm going to build something for myself to kind of automate this so that I could get this information across my whole site at once, maybe other people would need this too. And of course, I naively went into this idea of like doing affiliate tracking, which, by the way, is about 1,000 times more complex than I thought it was going to be. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But what it means, kind of like where we are today, is that, yeah, beginning of 2019, started a software company that builds affiliate tracking and reporting software that basically helps, anyone, content creators, media brands, website owners, website investors, like, anybody operating a content site monetized with affiliate marketing can bring in all the affiliate commissions and then attribute them to the page, link, and element level, and give you some tools to kind of uh, improve the revenue of the content. There's a lot more there, but I will not I will not ramble too much. But yeah, it basically came out of like kind of scratching my own itch, as they say. Whether that's good business advice, is left as a question for the reader to ponder. But that's kind of where we are today. Yeah, now I use it on my own site, and I couldn't live without this information.
Right. That's awesome. And you started it in 2019, you said?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. That's crazy.
February-ish. Yeah.
Okay, so about 3 years. How was it? Like, had you started a company before like this or?
No, I never started a company before. I had a couple of false starts building like other software products, but never anything that launched and got users. So that was the first time, but like I've been working in software for like 10 years before at that point, so like in a more professional context. So I know how to like do the tools and things like that. It was still a learning experience, but I came
Gotcha.
from an environment where this was professionalized. So I kind of knew a little bit about what I was doing.
Got it. And how big's the team now? Because I know it's been growing.
Yeah, we are, I think, 6 or 7 people now.
Wow.
I'm not sure. Yeah. But
Okay.
anyways, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's either 6 or 7. If I count myself or not is whether it makes a difference. But yeah, and who knows? Yeah, we're now at like a pretty comfortable team size. So goal is to kind of grow and become more profitable, obviously, and yeah, next year hire some more strategic roles, more developers, I guess, which I'm dreading because they're expensive.
Yeah.
But that's the name of the game when you're doing software. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. So if people want to find out more, they can head over to your website. Where should people find you?
So easiest place for people to find me is probably Twitter. So at Monica Lent is my Twitter handle. You will find me there tweeting occasionally.
Okay, cool. And then in the other interview we did, I think we talked more about Affilimate. So if people want to get a little more background on it and like the users that can get the most value out of it, but check out the website. There's a lot of information there. It's a good blog as well. So I think that's all I have. Monica, is there anything else that I forgot to ask you, or anything else you want to share?
I don't I don't think so. Just I hope, if people are getting started that they realize that it's not maybe as easy as it looks with people sharing on Twitter how much money they're making. There's always like a story behind that. And usually there's a lot more years than it might seem. So I think the key is just not to give up. That's my like inspiration, like a conclusion for anybody who is maybe in the earlier phases than where I am now. Now it took at least 6 years to get here.
Perfect. Thanks, Monica, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Doug.